Good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing well. I was just checking everything was updated and open before I started the stream in the hope that we can get some good good reception on the stream, which makes a change. We're excellent at the moment, so hopefully it will last. I'm going to do a quick update on Bitcoin and Ether, but a very quick one because there really isn't much to say since the last stream. There hasn't been much to say for quite a while now. We're still obviously in an uptrend, local, macro, and everything else. So what happened? So we came down, when was that? End of June. We made a weekly supply, and we're still up kind of essentially in that weekly supply, but then we closed above it, so we flipped it to demand. So we were then looking at the possibilities of, bouncing on the long, on the weekly demand for a long entry. That happened. I didn't call it specifically because I wasn't on top of this, and I was a bit like, so I just mentioned that in the stream, which is why it's a question mark. And I had lower entries, if we came down and tested more towards the bottom of the range. So what it's done is held up here. Also, now we've had the 2-week close. Let me just hide my drawing so you can see. So we did have a slight close above this 2-week, making a 2-week demand as well, but not one that's really tradable, but one that should make you wary for shorting. Like, you wouldn't really want to long off the top of here with your stock miles down below. But since then, like, really has just been sideways. We had a 2-day demand, which it went back through into the weekly. It came back up and closed above, and then it reclaimed that 2-day as support. Then not much since then. I guess the weekend since the last week has just been sideways. We haven't closed. We're looking at closing above there. If we close above, I'm looking at closing above 108.840 today to potentially make a 3-day demand. But per my usual, like, I don't want to long up here. Like, that's up to you. If you like longing breakouts, they never work out that well for me. I'd much prefer to long retraces than breakouts. So I'm keeping an eye on it, and I'll see if there's any lower time frame entries. But at the moment, yeah. So at the moment, my bias remains long. We're still pushing up, and it's it's kind of looking okay on the higher time frame. Lower time frame is just bouncing around. My concern with this is more the data side. Like, I just don't think. Okay, so ETFs. We got some ETF flow yesterday from BlackRock, but not much other than that's the only sort of positive we're seeing, really. So let me just find my other. So looking at the data that I normally look at, we've still got CVD, the spot CVD on Coinbase, and the aggregated one both falling despite the rise. So really all this action is being pushed by futures. You can see futures is kind of following and is now just following the price. Coin margin contracts futures are still low, but so it's the stable coin ones that's sort of really pushing the price. And you can see we've had a bit of a spike in OI today, and that's not really showing up well in the data. So from a finance perspective, I zoomed this out just so I could see what had happened since the absolute low down at 100k. And as you know, I've been kind of wanting lots of longs to go in. This run that we had on at the start of July did have those longs go in. Not really heaps in the bigger picture. We also had a bunch of shorts go in there as well. So again, we were looking for the shorts to get taken out before shorting. And we got a few of them taken out here, but in fact, like, it's kind of pretty much drifted back down to that ground zero. So I don't know if they're just being closed or whether they're very low time frame and are being stocked out or liquidated just in the choppy price action we're getting here. Similarly today, we've had this run, but we've had very little long action going in there. And obviously now we're starting to retrace. Bybit, I think, was where that push was that we're seeing in OI. So yeah, we did have push here. Try and zoom this out as well. So we did have a push in longs on Bybit today, and some shorts have gone in. But again, like, it's not very easy to just trade off this. Like, usually you'll see like much bigger spikes in longs and shorts to be able to sort of trade if you're trading against futures when there isn't much spot action, which is what we're seeing at the moment. Normally you can see spikes of longs going in the top or bottom, but you need to be looking either very, very low time frame or just sort of watching the zones in conjunction with this on the mid time frames. But yeah, either way, I mean, the summary of that, I guess, is there just isn't much. There's very little spot action. There's a small amount of ETF action to the long side pushing it up, but most of this price action is just futures, longs and shorts getting stopped out. So then looking at the liquidations, similarly here we had, I think, yeah, there were a bunch of liquidations. It depends which time frame you put in here. This is Binance actually. So Binance had a lot more liquidations, I think, at that local high that we just had. So it took out a few of them, but it still got more higher at 109,500 and just below 110k. And then obviously now we're starting to build up long liquidations below. But again, not hugely helpful for where prices actually rejected there just now. So, you know, there's certainly arguments for lower and there's arguments for higher. So I guess for me, on like all up, this is kind of just running in the middle of the range, which is basically what you see here. So I'd rather this pops out of the range to look for shorts much higher, or look for longs much lower, or just give me something, some decent demand. Like I say, if we get a close over 108.840 today, which is not looking likely at the moment, but it's still kind of early in New York. So then CME, so we had a CME gap which got closed yesterday, so that was kind of the wick down yesterday. CME as well has kind of 2-week demand, but again, it's slightly dubious as to whether you use 106.500 or 107.540, because it's a sort of 2 red candle, and it's not clean and it's not strong because it hasn't broken the high. So this is still quite tentative, but again, do I want to short against this? I would very, very cautiously. Could run back through it, sure. And I can certainly see arguments across the whole market of running back and testing this the new 3-month demand, which is down here on CME, a monthly just above, or even the lower 3-month. So it's just a difficult spot at the moment. You know, are we kind of just in this scenario where we're just going to get some sideways for about 6 months? Hi, Aussie man. Or yeah, where we're just going to get some sideways for about 6 months. But either way, the structure is still up on the mid time frame. So yeah, be conscious of shorts on that basis. And yeah, I'll try and update if I see anything more than that. US dollar dominance is also challenging, I guess. It's in this sort of wedge that I've been watching, but it's still holding the support on that wedge. It's kind of under this local 2-day supply, but it's still holding for now. So in a perfect world, I'd want to see it fall off into here, but whether it will before pumping up into there or even higher first, I don't know. I would have liked to have seen it fall by now, but then I would have liked to have seen Bitcoin break out by now, and hence the challenge. But yeah, nothing really new to report on that either. The low time frame, so the entries I gave in the last stream, just for some sort of low, just some trades to have. Like I said, I didn't want to look for the long side because we'd already come down into here. I think when I did the stream, I was a bit, or maybe we're coming down, but I was, yeah, just dubious about longing this middle section. Preferred to long further down. So my long entry is actually a long way off. Down here at 101. But yeah, I kind of looked over low time frame. I was looking at short entries, but even that was difficult. So there was an initial entry at the 8-hour supply here, which was just taking out this wicks over here that had just hit above the 8-hour supply. Seasonally, we are usually in a choppy time between June and September. Yes, probably. I actually probably need to check the seasonality. Like, it's the seasonality and things like that I find difficult because I always hear, I've kind of given up on it because I hear comments like people always say, oh, we always go up in June. And when I hear a comment like that, I'm like, okay, I'll go and look at all the Junes. But like, that's not necessarily we do go up in June. That's just a hypothetical. And then I'll go and look at all the Junes and I'll find like, you know, we have maybe 4 or 5 options and 3 of them, actually how many years? We've probably got a few more years now, but you know, maybe I'll find like maybe 60% have gone up or like 55%. And then I'm a bit like, well, does that really mean we're always going to go up in June? I also, as you know, mostly I think the market's completely different to how it used to be. So I'm just not even sure, yeah, that those are kind of valid likelihood, or, you know, or is it going to be more what TradFi is doing than what, yeah, Bitcoin has historically done. But anyway, yeah, so I was looking at the 8-hour supply here and a wick over that. So we did get a nice rejection there, but it came back down and tapped off this 2-day demand that we dipped into before. Then we came up for the next entry, which was off this hourly supply. I think it did hold that, but again, then picked up this as support before a further wick on Monday morning, or the CME open fuckery time, up higher in that zone. Then I had this third one up here, which I think, I don't know, this is a 15, this pink is either 5, 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes. But there is a kind of an untested zone up there after this big drop. So that was kind of my third possibility for lower high shorts. And then, as I've said previously, we've still got higher levels. This one has kind of hit close to it 2 or 3 times. I'm kind of, 3 times now, very close to the zone I wanted. So I suspect if it comes up there a 4th time, it's probably going to go through it. So I haven't alerted it again. And even this one now is a bit dubious. This was more just for low time frame price action at the weekend. But yeah, they would have given nice shorts off each of those anyway. And if you had a wider stop and held it down to the bottom, even better. Yeah, so we'll see. Locally, still a bit of a demand in here, but yeah, this is just such a messy structure. I'm just, not keen on looking for much on that. Let me just go back to, so I guess I was looking at this a lot yesterday, just, kind of even without all the drawings on it, just to kind of see what I think this is doing. And like, well, today I've kind of been a little bit more, actually, is it just forming a little bullish triangle here to push up? Yesterday I was just kind of like, I don't like this structure at all, and I wanted it to fall back down here. So yeah, we'll see anyway. So really, I'm just looking for, if we happen to close a big red candle now, then I'll probably look for shorts on that 12-hour supply in there, or whatever other supply there might be. If we close that 3-day demand today, then potentially you can look for aggressive longs off the top of that 3-day demand. Yeah, so not much more to add on Bitcoin. Ether's basically the same kind of thing. So Ether, the challenge between the two of them, I guess, is that Bitcoin, everyone's expecting it to break all-time high. If we do follow not necessarily seasonality, but what do we call it, like the halvings, for example, then we expect Bitcoin to break out. Again, that it's just consolidating sideways, and we're going to have another and a big bull run. That's kind of the higher time frame expectation for most people. The difficulty I have with Ether is Ether's in 3-month supply, so my bias on this, and has been for ages, is down. And it's down whilst potentially being conscious that it can go way higher inside it, so it can still be down. So I guess the difficulty is Bitcoin could break all-time high, go to 150k, and Ether just comes up here and then plays out the 3-month supply. So yeah, that's the challenge. But again, while I'm very, very loath to long this, while it's, finding resistance at this 3-month level, and I think all the confluent pairs are the same. So CME is also in 3-month supply, and Korea is still in 3-month supply. Ether BTC, I kind of would have liked a bit higher, but I don't know. We won't go into that now anyway. Yeah, so Ether, similar to Bitcoin, it had this drop down into here. It made a weekly supply. It's come up inside it. So again, like I've drawn it now as a weekly demand, so it has flipped it to demand, but it hasn't closed above, so it's not a strong demand, and it's still tentative. But the reason I draw the more recent, is because that's the one I should be biased towards, because it's more recent. So while it's still in weekly supply, and we're conscious of that, it's made weekly demand. And in fact, also similar to Bitcoin, it's made a 2-week demand, which I have drawn as well. Actually, it's very close to the weekly level anyway. So it's also made a 2-weekly demand. So again, we can still be long biased on this from a weekly perspective, but then we're right in 3-month supply. So that, but again, we could possibly get the weekly demand playing out, just even if it just comes up to the top of, maybe to my next entry up here, or, up to the top of that channel before a drop, again, playing out on the 3-month supply. But locally, again, we're just sideways. This was the entry that I was looking at with the cross. There were a couple of different entries in there. They were confluent with 5-day and 2-day, I think, on CME, which is why I was looking at those levels. But again, yes, it's dropped off there, but it's still holding this new 2-day demand. So I don't think I've looked at. So again, similar to Bitcoin, if we get a close above this level, change that. 2573, then we could create a 3-day demand, in which case, again, long entries off that possible, and we'll then just see what kind of close we get. If we get a close back below for a short, we'd have to close somewhere in here. This did leave a CME gap as well and didn't fill it. So, but Ether is much less inclined to fill than Bitcoin. So, you know, I've got heaps of gaps. You know, so up here, for example, there was a small one, I guess, that didn't fill. Let me look. Yeah, it didn't fill. Kind of came close to filling here, but didn't fill entirely. So, CME gaps on Ether are much less reliable. Lower time frame, it was basically the same as Bitcoin. I had the kind of 3 similar entries, and again, we had nice confluence with Bitcoin. Oops, 1 sec on this. So it's exactly the same. We had an 8-hour supply here, which gave a nice rejection, but again, didn't quite get down through demand. I feel like I've even missed. No, this is just holding a bit higher in structure than Bitcoin. Then I had an hourly inside it, and I think it did take a wick through that to take out the stops there, but that was the second entry. Again, if you managed to keep a wider stop on that, that would have been a decent entry or a lower time frame entry. And then finally, I guess there's a 5-day or 5 minute or 10 minute up here if we get a little bit higher. But as I've said, you know, we are in this demand structure that's upward like mid time frame. So these are now, you know, now this is a bit more tenuous. And it is possible that this wants to run higher into supply. Let me see what other entries I've got. Okay, so those are the same. I think those are the same 3 that I've got on the major, yeah, on the higher time frame chart. So the 8 hour up here that hasn't quite been tested, and the CME gap, and then various if it decides to make a new high from here. But again, it's just horrible structure I don't really like. So, you know, what Aussie Man's saying about it being a choppy time between June and September, I guess that is the case. It's, you know, we're really seeing that at the moment, which is why I didn't want to spend too much time on these. What else? I think that's probably about it on those 2. Those, yeah, Bitcoin and Ether. Yeah, so I'll just try and update as I can. I might try and put something in the channel, like if we do make that 3-day demand, I'll put a comment maybe later tonight, and we'll just see what the close is today, if it does anything. Oh, I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about was the indices. So I think we were hoping to get the tariff outcomes tomorrow, but somebody's just told me in chat that apparently Trump's delayed that till August. So I haven't clarified that, but I trust the person who told me not to give me false information. So yeah, so what most people were expecting or hoping for in the equities indices markets, that the tariff announcement would come and that would force some sort of a correction or drop in those to get people to get re-entries. But if that's now delayed till August, maybe that's not the case. So we have a little bit of a correction going on Dow with a daily supply and 12-hour supplies on NASDAQ and S&P, although NASDAQ, I think, closed again, trying to flip that supply to a demand level. But, you know, again, it's very early days. You can see they haven't broken any sort of demand. So I can't in good conscience say, yeah, you should short these because there's nothing really to short yet. Similarly, so but again, also so I had alerts for, you know, the breakout levels of NASDAQ and S&P, and they've just gone straight through them. Dow has paused in the weekly supply just before its all-time high. UK looks like it's going to head up there, and Aussie I wanted to head up as well. And you know, the big one I'm kind of watching, you know, if anybody's trading these things, is J225, the Japanese index, because this made 6 months demand at that upper brown level and 3 months demand where it bounced yesterday. So I had an alerts for those, you know, just saying watch the levels, because it's again hard, you know, they're huge zones. So let's just show you the zones. So, you know, it starts here, the 6 months, but it goes all the way down to the bottom there. And it's also weak because I haven't managed to close above that wick. And then the 3 months similarly goes all the way down to the bottom there. But you can just watch the top, because you can get big propulsions right off the top. If there's an example on here I can show you, but when things close with demand or supply, you can see a big propulsion. So yeah, if you're into trading indices, it's worth keeping an eye on that J225 index. Dow Jones has a juicy target at the triple equal highs into all-time high. I hope it gives a good entry. A good entry for a long before there, you mean, or for a short at that time? But yes, it's got a driver of that. Well, I've got, yeah, I suppose it's close to triple equal highs there. But yeah, so the Dow made a 2 month demand. So I've got alerts sort of lower again, it's just difficult. Like, is it going to bounce off the top here at the top of that 2 month, or is it going to go down to the 3 month inside? And I think I was just being a little bit conservative with an entry a bit lower, just because we've had such a big run. But yeah, you should certainly watch around that 43,780 mark if you get a bounce in there. And then definitely if it comes back to the start of this impulse, it's worth watching for a long entry. Yeah, long into the target. Where are you looking to long? Where do you think? You've been looking at the same things? But yeah, so yeah, we were really hoping for that drop on, it could be a trap, but worth trying. Anything could be a trap. I don't really see things as traps like that though. But yeah, I mean, you're just looking like, so the same as having these alerts on, Nasdaq and S&P at the breakout level. I think they were similar, or no, maybe just a single high rather than equal highs. But it's just going, are we getting a swing failure there? And in both cases, no, we didn't. We just powered straight through it. So, and also didn't give a retest. So I was looking for retest entries. I think I did have more aggressive alerts for retest entries, but then they never came back to give them. Maybe a 0.7 retrace of that last impulse. On US 30, yes, possibly. I don't know. I don't fib much on these. I probably should fib more, but I find them quite mixed reliability. But I guess we'll see. But yeah, anyway, the point of it, sort of sharing this, was that we have obviously, if Bitcoin's following TradFi, then what I'm saying here is we've got the same kind of like still holding the bullish structure, but very high and would like a lower retest, but doesn't necessarily mean we'll get one. So basically the same as Bitcoin. Let me see what this double drop's doing while I'm talking. Okay, so we've just bounced on that 2-hour demand. Might be a 4-hour by now, actually. Yeah, so let's just see what the close is today and see if we create that 3-day demand on both of these. That's kind of what I'd be looking for. So yeah, then just moving on to the majors quickly. So TRX would be the one to watch from a high time frame on this. So similar to Bitcoin, it created a 2-week demand. That big blue zone. So I already had an alert for this 5-day demand down inside here, and I haven't gone more aggressive on this. Again, just I just don't like these. I mean, just because the risk reward isn't there, so it doesn't mean we're not going to get a bounce off the top. Occasionally, I'll put more aggressive entries in, and if it's got a daily, actually just in here as well. But I'll tend to go more aggressive so if this move goes up from here, breaks this high, and then comes back, then I'm more inclined to be aggressive and look for an entry off the top. But while it's still a weak supply because we haven't broken that previous high, I'm less inclined to be aggressive for a long entry. However, if you want to look for an aggressive long on that, feel free, but I'd be reluctant to short it. At the moment, I've just got an entry down on this 5-day demand in here, so we'll see. But really, my preference remains on TRX to have an entry back down in this monthly demand, and if not, wicking into it because of all those stops below. And that's been also the overall challenge on these and on the majors, is that this to me is a very corrective pattern. Is it just crawling and crawling, and it can crawl up to here and then it's just going to fall off a cliff. And this is what we saw. So while we have this monthly demand here, what we did see on a lot of alts is that they had similar structure. They hadn't broken their all-time highs, and then when the market dropped, just went straight back through here. I'm less inclined to think that will happen to TRX because this is so bullish compared to the rest of the market. But that's obviously the risk, and this is clearly quite a corrective pattern compared to this impulse. So I just need to see the reaction here, and then, like I say, I'm being conscious of the trend line stops. Yeah, so I said it could go for the trend line stops inside the 2-week demand here. But again, like I say, still an uptrend. If you want to be aggressive, feel free to long this. BCH, again, just slightly wary of this. We're coming up, approaching that annual supply. It's gone into that annual level a few times, or a couple of times there. But again, like it's very possible that it finds resistance at that level that's not too much higher here, which is why I potentially started looking for shorts. This did make a 3-month demand, so I have been, again, slightly more aggressive. Let's go down to the lower time frame so you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I've set a long entry on that, on the 3-month demand there. But again, similar to TRX, I just really don't like all the trend line stops and the possibility of a wick going through. But again, you know, just that all that means is just don't put a limit order, or only, you know, if you want to limit order it, do a collection of them and only do it on spot, like just in case a wick. You don't want a wick to sort of liquidate you before a run. So anyway, I talked, I think, in the last stream about having a long entry here. So I had a short entry on the 5-day supply, long entry on the 3-day. Then I did think it was worth looking for a possible short in this daily to see if it rolls over and or gives a bigger correction similar to this. And so it got a bit of a reaction on that first hit, but again, it's just picked up local demand there. So it's now going higher in the zone. So this entry is still essentially valid for a short. So you can keep an eye on that, because if the whole market is going to give us a drop, you know, maybe we get a drop off that down into here. Just a question of it whether it's ready or not. That's the difficulty. Litecoin made a daily supply yesterday, so it's in a kind of a large 2-day demand. So most of the other majors are really just horrible and messy. So we had 5-day supplies. A lot of them have got sort of 3-week supplies and monthly supplies and things. Litecoin doesn't, but you know, it had a 5-day supply. Then it came up and flipped a 5-day demand below. Then it wicked down into had a 3-day, which it took out, and a lot of the majors are the same. They took out the 3-day, but then closed back above and closed with the 2-day demand. And then a lot of them are coming up and testing the 2-day demands and holding for the moment. But I'm going to show you the other majors in a minute, but they feel a bit more, yeah, a bit like they're a bit more sideways than this. So anyway, yeah, just in the interest of having trades both directions. So I had a short entry off the, I think, 12 8-hour supply up there, and I put another one in for this 8-hour in case it gets a wick up into it. It's indecisive, so this isn't necessarily, there's not the highest probability level, but it's just worth watching if we get a little more of an up move, or a stop hunt for the week, and again for a potential drop down onto there. You can see we've kind of got a diamond pattern as well, so I've drawn this diamond. And I forget the stats, I need to go and hunt for them again, but there is diamond is basically 2 symmetrical triangles back to back, but there's some percentage likelihood that it's going to go up from it, or it's reversing, and there's some percentage likelihood that it's continuation. I know it's 60-40, but I can't for the life of me remember which one is the most probable. And again, the challenge with all these alts is that we have, you know, this impulse correction, and then is this the start of a new impulse, or are we still just correcting for another drop? Or, you know, or is that just the end and we're getting another drop? But now we have a higher low. And in fact, I'll go and show you, what was it? BONK, I think. I'll show you that in a minute for the comparison, so you can see why I'm sort of indecisive on these. But I just wanted to show you where I've got the next entries on these things anyway, if they do hit. Ripple, so yesterday we joked that we had a top signal with Ripple, and then shortly afterwards the new EOS, which is called A alert, went for a short entry on that, and I'm like, okay, that's a top signal. Ripple obviously had a push yesterday, but didn't quite get to my short up there. Ripple has this monthly demand, and it has dipped down into it. Again, I didn't alert it because it was a bit early in the month, and I was still updating everything. Might make a new 3-day in there now, but Ripple, like, I want to be bullish on now. Because of this monthly demand, again, just bullish until proven otherwise. So certainly look for longs on this, I think. We'll just see what the reaction is here in case we get that lower high. But again, it's just that the indecision is whether, so we've got the impulse to the left, and we've got a correction, and we've got potentially an A, and there's this B, and then what's C going to do? Is C like this? Is C a triangle? And, you know, or are we just done on this? Or is it, you know, is it kind of ABC, and now we're going into a bullish up move again? And, you know, with the monthly demand there, that becomes slightly more probable. So again, if we get a drop, I still would like an entry down there, but maybe I may not get it. If we do make a 3-day demand here, I'll probably put a more aggressive entry here. But again, you can see it's still quite messy, and that's, you know, it's not exactly looking impulsive. You know, I'd rather see all these majors take out the stops before kind of looking for, let's get into longs. But then it is crypto, and it's hard. So you can see things over here, you know, where it's kind of sideways, and you think, oh, maybe it's going to take out the stops, and then it just suddenly throws a couple of giant green candles. But then it's difficult. They're not high probability. But yeah, anyway, so just giving you the pros and cons. Up to you what you want to trade. Then Just check my streams are okay. Still excellent connection, shockingly. So new majors, again, just very quickly on these. BNB, get rid of that. BNB, I was bullish because we came off monthly demand, but now back up in supply. I just need to get a retrace, and if we get a retrace to there, that's where I would look for a long, and we'll see. Still got a short entry here, 8-hour supply, but again, just conscious it's coming off monthly demand. And I would say on all of these, disclaimer, like if Bitcoin breaks out, obviously don't short any of these because they'll follow. So it'd be very nice if BNB finally gets a move, breaks out of this consolidation up to there, but whether it's ready is debatable. That entry was there from last week was just for a possible swing failure of those levels, so it just came back down into daily demand from there and it's just moved higher in the zone. So we're still in 5-day supply on this, I believe, but yeah, I might flip a 5-day demand. So yeah, just watch all those closes today because there's not 5-day, 3-day. It's the 3-day demand close or possible demand close today, 3-day close and daily close. But yeah, just look for the 3-day closes today, and then potentially we'll look for the 5-day in a day and a half's time and be more confident. But again, just a bit of sideways, so it would be nice if it gives a retracement, may or may not. I'll be quicker on AIOT and DOGE because I again talked about those last time. All of those had a new monthly supply, or monthly, 2 month, 3 months. So AIOT, it's got 2 month and 3 month up here, which I had alerted. I've got the 2 month alerted. 3 months, a 3 month might be a historic one actually. So I've alerted the 2 month supply. I've alerted the 6 month on Link, and I alerted a 5-day inside this monthly on DOGE just because it was already up in the monthly, which is this brown level. But all of these, yeah, I'm just loath to look for longs on while they're so close to or in these supplies. So I just don't think it's worth it. I haven't put any new entries. So this is where I said you can see that kind of sideways. So if you look at the 2-day on all of these, I see Link particularly, Link and Sol look very like this. They're holding a 2-day demand, but just really very, very sideways. DOGE actually made a 5-day supply, but then just swing failed it and came back into that little range again. So I guess what I want to see is some of these start to break the range if we're going to be bullish. But yeah, I just think on Link, DOGE and ADA, even though we were very bullish on them before because they were all in annual 6-month demands, the fact they've got all this new supply now is making me increasingly nervous. So what I was really hoping for on these was some sort of confluent, retest, and whether they're confluent, I don't know. Link and DOGE are already in monthly. I think I was just slightly more conservative, looking for that 6-month in Link and looking for the 5-day inside on DOGE. But it'd be nice to see some confluence of all of those kind of hitting and then rejecting at the same time. But no, in my life, they'll just fall off the cliff from here and not come back for me. And then we'll just see. We'll see what the zones below I've got of interest weekly. Possible swing failure on ADA, and then I think there's a big drop before the 3-month, 3-week demand lower. But if things like Link hit this 6-month supply, then just be very, very careful because that could really propel a very big move down if the level reacts. And then the same on TROLLSOL, Atom and NEAR. So you can see again. So I think Atom and NEAR also, and DOT by the looks of it. So all of those made a 5-day supply like DOGE, and they didn't get the wick through, but they're just holding underneath that at the moment. So this is the 2-day I'm showing you. I'll show the 5-day quickly. So the 5-day, you can see got a rejection on DOT. Atom came a little inside it, and NEAR came a little inside it, but those 5 days at the moment are still holding. On the reverse side, we had a 5-day demand on SOL. Overlay DOGE and Tesla are in the same chart, almost same movement since August 2024. That's not surprising, I guess. I'll have a look in a sec. Yeah, so SOL has 5-day demand. So again, that one could be slightly more bullish, but then it's right in weekly supply. So these are, they're all just very challenging. Atom, I think, is the only one here that's got a monthly or 2-monthly supply quite close to price. Yes, I do have an alert in there. So I've got an alert 1-month supply, check the reaction there, and then there's a 3-month a bit higher. The others, I think, all have a bit of space, but again, they're all under major supply. So I can't be, until I at least see, so while we're under major supply, until I at least see, firstly, either the test, or secondly, some flip of major demand, So, you know, I need to see a decent green candle and then maybe a 5-day demand or something like that formed to kind of think, okay, maybe we're going to just reverse these monthlies. Then, you know, because again, like I've said, reiterate from the last year, while we have monthly supply, they are mostly weak monthly supplies. So you can see here we've closed below, but we've still got wicks. You know, it's just really a supply in the range. So it is possible it flips it. But then again, we've got a month. What I would need to see is this close green, close above, flip it to demand, etc. And, you know, we've got 3 weeks of the month left. They both pumped into Trump's arrival, then back to the base of the pump. Yeah, that sounds about right. We go back to Doggy then quickly. So hold on, just so quickly on these, the more aggressive entry is on Atom, I think, for the short, just because it's got the monthly there. Dot's monthly or 2 monthly is a little bit higher, 2 month, 3 month supply in there. Of course, something else, yeah, dash lines, messy. Near, I put an alert for 5-day supply. I think I had that previously. And Sol, haven't got any local alerts because we had this weekly. And it's just consolidating there. But if it does come up again, I would look for a swing failure over that previous level that didn't quite tap the monthly up there. Yeah, so those are the majors. Right, so what are you saying, Doggy? Doggy. Should have a thing. Do you have another Doggy chart that doesn't have all the crap all over it that'd be easier to view? So we have Doggy Apollo chart, which has got more history, which I have. So what are you saying? So overlay Tesla, almost same movement since October 2024. Well, plus sign needs to work. Click, 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 nothing happening. Which reminds me I've got to put my mouse cursor on. Go away. No, it doesn't want to play ball. Hold on a sec. Let me just reload the page. Looking at my stream health as well. Okay, right. Reload. Back to WUS dollar. Is this going to work? Yes. Okay. Tesla. I need stocks. Which one do we use? NASDAQ. New price scale. Yep, that's pretty decently correlated. Let me just zoom out quickly. Let me log scale it. Both log scaled already. Yeah, not bad on the monthly. Down a bit. You said when? Since August 2024. Okay, so you're just looking at that last section. See, this is what I meant earlier when I was talking about the sort of seasonality thing, is that people will say things and then I go and look and then I'm like, really? So I mean, yeah, I mean, you can see obviously there's the big up moves happened at the same time with Tesla and well, Doggy's a bit after, but I guess that's when Elon was high on life and started pumping it back here. But I kind of, yeah, I look at it, I guess if you're only looking at this section, perhaps, you know, they did both have a pump, and I think that's when, I guess, when Bitcoin started following the stock market a bit more, and yeah, the ETFs got involved, because then we started following the stock market a bit more. But then I just look at this and I'm like, okay, we went up there on Tesla, well, Doggy just came down for this whole from April to August. So I think for you to say they've got, you know, they correlate from August onwards is quite biased. You're literally picking. Don't be offended. I just feel like it's a little biased because you're just picking like that end section of the chart. Whereas, you know, literally right before that, it clearly was negatively correlated, if anything. like here. So none of that really helps too much, but I guess for me, what that illustrates more, I guess, is that you know, the rest of the market is the crypto market is kind of following more of the indices, but I think you'll probably find better correlation, I guess, if I overlaid this with S&P or something like that, or NASDAQ. But again, yeah, this is my problem. I kind of like I look at these and I kind of, you know, so let's say, you know, you're saying June to September is normally choppy. So that would be May 2021. So that would be from here. Yeah. And just June to September is there. 2021. 2022. Bigger. Can't draw it like that. No, you're not wasting my time. It's fine. You're welcome to ask. That's why I said don't be offended. But just don't be offended if I disagree with you. Because I'm not the kind of person that's going to agree with you to make you feel better. So hopefully you're my generation, not Gen Z, because then you might be upset. Anyway, June, she says a bit later here. June, July, August, September. It's a bit choppy here. So I guess even this for the start, like I'd need to look at this probably on the others chart rather than on Doggy, because I kind of go, okay, yeah, that's choppy, but then also this is all choppy and that's choppy too. So, but yeah, I mean, it's probably better to look more specifically at where the trends are. So, you know, at what point, you know, what month is this and is that correlating? And I think that's common. I think that's February, and yeah, I think the end of the year pump is much more correlated probably. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, so that's all the majors. So yeah, I kind of wanted to look more at the alts again because that's more fun. So as far as the layouts go, so I kind of shared another layout. You know, Jen said you're 32. Okay. Isn't that borderline? Like isn't millennial like 35? No, I suppose that's not Gen Z. Which one are you then? Are you millennial? I don't know. Sadly, I'm a few above that. Trying to con myself into believing I'm Gen Y, but I'm really not. Mm. So anyway, I took off, excuse me, am I dribbling? I took TBIR off here because TBIR got delisted or is going to be delisted by MEXC. And I took white off because it had done what I wanted it to do and wasn't really interesting anymore. And I'm still like, I'm in two minds about this layout, whether I'm going to keep it or not. But the intent of this layout at that point in time was to have everything that are pumped loads and that may fall off a cliff. And I think TBIR we had so just to try and wait and look for shorts, because I kept losing them from the other layouts and forgetting what I was looking at, and there were so many. So like, for example, those ZBCN is probably the best example that was still on here. And it was also like looking at the monthly demands as well. So ZBCN was what I was really looking for shorts, and it was the only one that actually didn't really give me a short until here. Because I was looking for a retest up here that never came. Yeah, so I was looking for those falling off a cliff. So I don't know if there's so much value in tracking these anymore. Because also they were the ones that were going up when the rest of the market wasn't really. Bananas and Form were the two that I wanted to track because they came off. So Form we had coming off monthly demand here, and Bananas 31 right back down at the low was obviously one of the massive performers off monthly demand. And then yeah, now I was just watching this retest on 12-hour supply there. And Form, you know, like it's a good reaction off monthly demand, but it hasn't broken the high and is now drifting back down. So I don't know, might have months of sideways if it's not going to break out that quickly. SERAPH, we were looking for a test up in there per the last stream, and then potentially moving down into here. I think my alert went for that, but the wick was just short of that supply up there. Similarly, HYPE, I was just refined that daily supply there into trying to get the 8-hour inside it a little bit higher, and again hasn't offered it. You know, whether these are going to fall dramatically, I don't know, but there's not much value, or not compared to the original point of this. So the only ones really compared to the original point now is Bananas 31 and Useless. So useless is funny. So I got I put another alert yesterday, and I said in the group, I was like, if you can't beat them, join them. There was like a 12-hour daily here, and I said, that when I did this for Tibia, when I went finally, okay, I'm going to just put a long entry in because I'm staring at this thing too much. And I said it just made one loss high and then dropped, and that's basically exactly what's happened on Useless. And so I put this other more aggressive 8-hour supply entry in there earlier. It could come back into that zone as well. Like, I don't know if this is done. This is still me being quite aggressive on. So I was quite aggressive on this short and then aggressive on this short. This one did work, but just only down to local demand before the new high. So it's still early days on this. Obviously, it's still holding an uptrend here, but it's tried to wick through the bottom of it. So we'll see if this is starting to go into a downtrend. But again, obviously, could be a very nice short if it is ready to do something significant. But yeah, so if you got in that, great, hold on to it. Else, if we'll look and see if this makes a new daily supply or something. But yeah, if it does get a wick back up, you can look for shorts back up in that 8-hour above 283 there if it takes out those wicks, because sometimes you do see these things do that. So yeah, there's that, and then bananas obviously, which got a rejection off that 8-hour supply, but down into new daily demand, so needs a bit more time as well. And then the two new ones I added was TUT. So just again at that breakout level, and I was watching it down here, and it did typical crypto, did that kind of, what's that? I don't know what you call that, BART down to hell before then breaking out, and then unfortunately I didn't check it later. Got some old zones in there actually that shouldn't be there. I unfortunately didn't check this later, and it therefore went up without me. So I've been kind of watching this for shorts. It did make a 2-day supply, but it's being slow coming off it, and it even tried to flip that to a 2-day demand. So I'm still being a little bit careful on this because I don't want to be too early, and it could still break out. Like when you look at the others like Useless, for example, this can have a few days of consolidating before breaking out. So the TUT's really just, if you look at the lower time frames, you can get sucked into shorting, but this could still kind of break higher from here. But yeah, I'm just keeping an eye on that. And then the other one is HOSICO, which I thought was going to break out yesterday, but then obviously timing was bad on that as well because Bitcoin started dropping again. And so now it had made a daily demand and it's come back down deeper inside it. So I've set an alert on that for a retest of here if we get it. So that would be a nice potential short on this if we get it. And it's very possible this will break. So I'm leaving that alert there. But if this does swing fail the high, what you see on many alts, and particularly I don't know if this is MEXC only, but this kind of structure where it takes out the high is very likely to do that. So certainly look for shorts on it and hold on to them if you do get them. And we'll just see the reaction on those next levels. But yes, I might kind of throw this layout in the bin because, like I say, the purpose of watching them originally and getting the scalps off them was when we had a nice sideways scalp market and we were looking for those shorts to get the bigger drops. So I don't know, I might keep them another couple of days and we'll see. ZBCN can probably go now just back to the normal. Then my second new layout, which I shared, was disappointing. And I did kind of disclaimer at the time by saying that I wanted to wait because it was at the point I shared it was when Bitcoin was kind of at this 3rd of July high, I think, or no, maybe the 7th of July high. I'm not sure, one of the highs. And I said I wanted to see what Bitcoin was going to do, so we shouldn't be too aggressive. I left a few aggressive alerts on and they basically haven't worked. So for example, AGT, I wanted to be bullish on this because it's got such a lot of scope to get up to here, but that doesn't mean it has to. Obviously, it's still got to have the interest, but this was having a nice kind of daily sideways consolidation here. And then it looked like it might close above, so I think I threw in a more aggressive alert on this 8-hour demand, but unfortunately it just came back through it. The timing of it when it hit yesterday was really bad, and then it flipped that to 8-hour supply. So again, I don't know, we might get a bigger drop on this, maybe it'll just pull a BMT on me and be an asshole, but we'll see. It's just that the timing of this is just awkward because obviously it's taking its sweet time at each level and we haven't got the aggression in the market for strong trends. But yeah, I want to keep that on the list. XO was a new addition. So this is one I started watching a few days ago. So obviously had decent entry there, and then it made this daily demand. So I put in an entry for this test. I can't remember exactly where it was this red candle or that green candle. So that had a nice bounce over the weekend, but then obviously has retraced back in. It's got a 3-day demand here. It's not the nicest. I don't really like these when they're weak and then they test too quickly. But again, just looking at it earlier, set an alert on that trend line. Just if we get a 4-hour close that's significant and then we flip something to demand, then it may be worth looking for longs. I was toying with an entry possibility on this 4-hour, but again, like with the trend line stops there, I would rather, if we're going to drop down into here, then it's obviously going to take a lot longer. But very early days, very new coin, but something you can keep an eye on if a possibility of a breakout. Or again, keeping on the radar, but it's kind of hit my 2-day alert there, but it's taking time doing nothing. This because it had this big monthly, and there's not many things that have a monthly. So that big monthly demand there, it kind of wicked into it, and then again just took ages, took a good few days of wicking around before moving up, and then has this big wick up into there. But again, I just want to keep it on the radar. I'm not sure. I don't like that wick because it could push it lower inside this monthly. But again, just keep an eye on the consolidation of what's going on there. NEWT's going to come off the list. I'll show you quickly because I think it was lost momentum. Yeah, I was looking at there was a 12-hour demand, gave a bit of a bounce. Then it had the daily, gave a bit of a bounce. Then it had the 12-hour and then the daily, so it gave a bit of a bounce off the 12-hour and then very little off the daily, and is now deeper inside the daily. So I don't know. Again, like it might, if the market picks up, then obviously it's leaving nice. A lot of these are leaving nice trend line stops above. Yeah, it's not imminent, which is what I really want from these. Skate again, I'm on the fence. Like this has held quite well despite the rest of a lot of other things dropping. But again, it's just very much in a sideways. I need a bit more from this to see. So it's still in this. This was an alert for a 4-day demand, so it's still faffing around in the 4-day demand, but it still keeps making supply and keeps rejecting off it. But then it doesn't break demand, so I think there's still hope for this, but just timing. AIOT was a bit like AGT. It had a big drop, and then I was looking at entries here. Again, I put an aggressive entry on this daily demand here, and it's just gone through it. And you can see now it does have the bigger weekly, but again, I just need to see a bit more on this. If it. I think it just it made 2-day supply by a hair, and then it's got a daily supply, but it's offset. It's not. It's just not clean, but that's something that should be on the radar. It's worth having on the radar because it's got just scope for a big move if it does hold. APX I've talked about before, and again, for your radar, it's slow as well. And this one concerns me. I'll show you BMT in a minute because BMT got murdered. And this concerns me a little bit. This could pull a BMT, but the difference with this is this does have this monthly demand. So I've kept this on the radar for ages because it's come off a monthly demand at these levels. But then it kind of broke out of this trend line. I think I was looking at it. I can't remember if I had a trend line alert. I don't think I did, but I think I was just watching it and talking about it in the group. And now it's back down in this daily demand. But again, it spent 3 days here. It's got a daily supply. It's rejected that. So I don't know, possibly it's going to run. But again, timing very much sideways. I think that's all of those in this. I know SERAPH. SERAPH is the last one. And again, something I've been watching for a really long time. So timing again. It had a monthly demand down here and it's made a new monthly. So it has made it is one of very few that's made a new monthly demand at this level. So I have alerted that monthly demand there. I previously had the alert down on this daily because it just got missed on that wick there. And then I had a trend line alert. So this came back on my radar yesterday because it broke the trend line, and it's also made a local weekly demand. So it's a tough one because you can see how messy and wicky and nasty it is. But again, is it gearing up to do a bigger move? So like I say, try and it's even got a daily, so it's made a daily demand here. Just very, very hard with these to know, if I'm being. I'm trying to be more conservative because obviously the market isn't bullish overall and I'm not bullish and it's just picking the odd alt here and there that it is bullish. But it's still just very hard to know if, if we are just going to suddenly get a big up move, or if we're going to get dips deeper inside before the up move. Or, these are weak demands, like none of them managed to break this high, or, is this supply just so strong or whatever here, just so strong that this is eventually going to fall off a cliff and this is just a sideways consolidation before it dies. So it's trying to preempt breakouts in a weak market. So therefore they're not overly high probability. But I'll show you BMT to kind of show why. Try and find one. Just type it, it's easier. BMT, crypto, no, BMT. So yeah, so this is something again, so you can see, I guess that's sort of to some extent some similarity to SERAPH. The real difference here is this was in a monthly supply. So I think I'd kind of forgotten that I remembered it, and then I'd forgotten it, and that's why I cover it with big brown, so I remember, but obviously then I forgot. But yeah, so decent longs there, and then there was a breakout here, and again we were watching it and thinking, like it wasn't a good enough breakout. So again, I think I commented on this. And was just like again sideways. And I had another breakout alert here which didn't go off. I can actually delete that now. For potentially breaking that trend line, and then it did have a 4-day, I think a 4-day demand down there. So I had that alert for this 4-day demand, thinking, okay, we're going to get a bounce and then we'll move up from there. And then yeah, just no. I don't know what happened. I don't think it got delisted, because I think I looked at the delistings yesterday. But no, for some reason it just got completely thrown off a cliff from there. And yeah, that can obviously just happen. Sometimes you just get these sideways consolidations. And I guess that's the risk of saying you're bullish, because this again, nice triangle. I mean, I guess when it hit that 4-day, it could have gone up, but it had broken down this kind of triangle consolidation that it had up here. So it just happens. It's unfortunate we don't get them all right, and we do kind of get a lot of fuckery for. So my vertical stream's poor, unfortunately. Yeah, we do get a lot of fuckery within the low volume coins and the ones that are just on MEXC. This is actually not just on MEXC. This is on all the exchanges, so you get fuckery regardless. But the MEXC ones are worse. So anyway, yeah, that was kind of the problem I had with back to SERAPH. The problem I had with BMT. That's why we use stop loss. That's what can happen. So yeah, anyway, those are the ones that at the moment I have to keep an eye on. But NEWT is not really. Skate is a bit tentative. So yeah, Skate, NEWT, all. I mean, they're all pretty tentative. I'm trying to think what's the better ones here. I mean, XO possibly, because it's one of the newer ones, but then newer means no supply, but then it also means very tentative on whether it has demand or not. So, yeah, you kind of need to pick. Oh, Aussie man, I can see you're on the vertical stream. Like, is it easy enough? Is it okay to see? Because I've got stream status poor. So yeah, give me a shout if it's not as much I can do about it, but if there is something, if I need to like work on it somewhere outside of the stream, I might have another look at it. But yeah, SERAPH is probably obviously the one that's looking nicest at the moment on the lower time frames. AIOT's kind of interesting because it's thrown a big green candle, so if this can close strong, AGT, could well just drop into next zone now, and XO will just see what happens when that alert goes off, if it goes off. Other than that, so other alts, it's just been a shit show. So again, it's and I've said it's hard, with something like BMT. Port is another one, so this was just a crazy one. So Port and DUPE were two, Port 3 and DUPE were two that I'd set to watch because they had these trendline stops. So I initially had an alert go here for a breakout of the trend line. It came back in for the retest. And also I didn't have an alert for that retest, but I did have an alert for, a bit hard to see, but fine. That's not ideal, is it? Yeah, it kind of looks like I'll go and look at it later. I don't know what I can do about it. That's the problem. Other than I'm still about to getting a new computer because this one's shit. But But yeah, anyway, so port three, so yeah, obviously it had all those trend line stops. It had tried to break the trend line, came back down, held demand, but again, it just didn't do much. So while this looks like this got plowed through, what actually happened when it hit this daily demand was it tapped it, immediately went up into this is the 30-minute chart. So in the space of the next couple of hours, it come back down first. No, yeah. So in the space of a couple of hours, a 15-minute candle, it went up, and then it threw this giant wick up, taking out all the trend line stops. But obviously, because its karma didn't make it up to where I actually had my short entry, which I've now deleted, but I actually had a short alert up here. What's the probability we never see an alt season again? And they were past anomalies. Alt season were past anomalies. Yeah, pretty high, I think. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's too strong. I don't necessarily think we'll never see an alt season again, but I just don't think we have alt season. I don't think it's going to be the way we know it. I think we have too many coins. But I think we just need to wait for structure. So when, like, I haven't looked at the total market cap charts this stream, but I don't want to do that today because I need to go for a walk soon. But I think if you go look at my previous streams on the others chart, like I think we probably will get alt seasons, but I think we need to drop first. I think it's not the same as before where we get it, Bitcoin goes, then alts go, etc. And I think we saw that even last year. I need to go back and have a think about it a bit more, but I think last year, like 2024, yeah, so Bitcoin obviously went a lot and then Ether didn't and alts didn't. So, but people are still saying, oh, it is the same, it is the same. And I'm kind of like, well, okay, maybe it is. Maybe we're going to have some giant alt season. But from a structural perspective, when I look at others, when I look at the new total ES100 or total E100 chart, I could just see bigger drops. And when they hit the next demands, then possibly we're going to have a giant alt season. And trust me, I will be like fully all over it when we come down and hit the new monthly demands and things like that. I'll be like, yeah. But at the moment, what I'm seeing on that others chart, so I'm not going to look at it, but I'll bring it up very quickly. Bitcoin, others. So, from the real macro perspective, here and here. So if I'm just going to follow the chart, I mean, like the fundamentals and whether we have an alt season and whether the rotation is going to happen and blah blah blah. You say Fed rates. Again, I don't follow this with regard to the Fed or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll need to start doing that more because obviously we have ETFs more into the situation. But if I look at this purely from a chart perspective, we've got an impulse, we've got another impulse, we've got a correction. We've got a kind of a dubious, what I was expecting to be a head and shoulders, and you followed me, so you'll know I've been saying that. I see that happening. Now, I could be wrong, like this could still consolidate through here and go up from here. Then maybe we'll get alt season. That would be the bullish scenario. Alt season need to drop and Fed rates need to drop too, yeah. But if we go like, we as I always trade, supply and demand, so, this is very ahead that has a 3-month supply. Ether has a clearer 3-month supply. I want to see, in order for me to be like, yeah, we might have an alt season. I want to see this happen or this happen. Hopefully it won't go deeper. It can go deeper in these zones, obviously. But from where we are now, I don't see alt season. And it's not 100%. Like I could be wrong. Like I said, there is an argument for this consolidating through here. It's made out, make a head and shoulders. Maybe we'll get a little season if we go up to here, and there is an argument that this just holds, and then we eventually take off. But yeah, preferably if this comes and tests here. So Ether has tested here. And Ether, like if we compare this with Ether, this has come and tested here, and Ether's had a decent bounce back up to there. So if that happened, that would be a decent alt season on this chart. Total E100 is kind of the same. So this has a monthly supply here, so obviously it tested just into that with those wicks. Excuse me, I didn't mean to do that. This is a bit tougher because this is it's already hit into the annual demand, but 61 fib here. So again, if we just look at a normal correction, it's not a rocket science chart from a probability perspective. We've had an impulse, we've got an A, B, C. That would come nicely into the 61 fib onto 3 months demand, maybe a bit lower into 6 months demand, and then sure, we have alt season. What we're really hoping is this isn't a top, because if this is a macro top, then yeah, maybe we'll never get alt season again. But until I see like this annual demand break, then I'm not going to go, this is a macro, top, and we're going to zero. Because obviously, if we start going down here, that's a serious problem for the alt market. And maybe we'll have that with regulations and stuff. But again, so normally we get to an impulse, and then you get, so that's wave 1, and this is wave 2. So if wave 2 is sharp, then wave 4 is normally like sideways consolidation. So if this is 2 is sharp, that's 3. If this is 4, like an A, B, C, again. But in a perfect world, I would like to see that down here, not just kind of in the middle of the range here. But hey, could be wrong. Anyway, digress. Supposed to be talking about alts or alts overall. So port 3, yeah. So yeah, this was just a bit of a hideous nightmare. Really nice long up to there. If anybody got into it and went crazy, yeah, maybe we could have different kind of alt season where alts pump 2 to 5 times, but probably the previous crazy 50 times. So I know I disagree with that as well. I think yes, and like I've said this multiple times, and I was going to show you BONK, wasn't I? That's what I said earlier. Maybe just finish this and I'll get onto that, and then I can talk more about that. So port 3 anyway, I kind of put just a tentative possible long on there, but I mean that's just again just a hideous chart. So I wanted to kind of run through some of these alerts that have come through, so you could see, and again just see the challenges. I was going to just quickly show DUPE. So DUPE had a lower time frame, but again, so DUPE came and hit. It's a difficult one. It came and hit this weekly demand, so I had an alert for the weekly there, and then I had an alert for the 5-day inside it. But then unfortunately it's closed below, so now it's flipped to 2-week supply. So let's hide that so you can see. So it's just hit that. So I alerted this 2-week supply here, but not really to trade, just to really observe. But again, it was one, when it was here, I was kind of similar to port 3. I was like, are we going to go up and take these stops if we get this bounce? So I'm a little bit in 2 minds about this, but yeah, it's something you can keep an eye on. It is kind of holding an up structure and does have all these stops up here, but then the 2-week supply just now makes it much more dubious. Okay, so Aussie man, what are we talking about here? Trying to think of examples. So yeah, I just think we've got a mishmash. So let's look at XMR. So you talk the older stuff. So we've got older stuff. Lovely top there. So we've got stuff like this. Not many. That had big drops going down into what's that 2022. It had a higher low in 2024. So then when we had the end of year pump, it's held for higher lows and higher lows. There's very little in the market that looks like this, but there are some of the older stuff. There is some, like XRP, BCH perhaps. This can still be lower high, bit of a worry, but at least we've got some halfway decent looking stuff. ARV is another one. So this was one, again, I've been super bullish on this one. It hit 6 months, I had 6 month demand, 3 month demand. So again, like I've been calling longs on this like multiple times. It's been hard to get the precision on it. It actually even closed an annual demand. It did close above this annual level. So again, something I was quite bullish on this. God, I think about this coin, and there's someone in Australia who probably hates me on this. Do you remember when this was previously Lend? And it would be back. It was probably even before this. Like, I think this chart was new, so I think it was before this. And he was like, I think he was so happy to get out of break even when it was down here somewhere. And I think it then pumped shortly afterwards, and I was like, God, he must hate me. But obviously you can't, like, I didn't know the fundamentals of the thing, so it's not my decision to make. But it does he comes into my mind when I think of ARV, because he was like, oh my God, yeah. I was like, yeah, close it, get out of break even, because I think he'd held it underwater for like 3 years since 2017. But yeah, anyway, so this, again, very bullish chart. But then in contrast, you've got, I'm just not going to be able to find an example now, ZRX. Okay, so I haven't updated all of these, but So this annual supply, I think I've probably been using the other chart, but I'll keep this one because it's cleaner. But here, this has got annual supply, and a lot of charts look like this, a lot of the ones with history. Comes up really high inside it, but rejection, this I expect to break the low. There's my, like that should take out that low because this is an annual downtrend. Then we've got like XEM. I know it looks like shit. It's the follow chart. So another one, annual supply, closed, you know, kind of made a small one, sorry. Made it by a hair here, came up inside it, then made it by a bigger, slightly bigger margin in January 2024, tapped up inside it, and then has literally fallen off a cliff since then. Didn't even come back for my re-entry there. So do I think these are ever going to come back? No. Do I think we're going to have alt season? You know, this is the 2020 alt season. You know, this is a long time ago now. You know, I guess this had a 2018 alt season in there as well. But you know, when it had the bounce in well, the end of the year, or well, you know, you can see it's got this. In this case, you know, this was alt season for this coin. Then you've got other stuff that have got much bigger alt season. So this is what I mean. Like I just think I've always, and that's why I keep saying trade both directions to everything, because you've got stuff that just dies, that just falls off a cliff. You know, XEM flipped an annual demand that's followed Ripple. So this again, you know, it's held for a higher low on monthly demand. Like to me, all the alts just look different. I don't think, and I, you know, so I struggle to even talk about alt season because I just don't believe in it. Like I just think you're getting different. You know, like I just showed you the last alt season, XEM got very little, but and in fact this got very little. Or is that no wait, sorry, that is the alt season for. So again, this happened really fast. But any other previous, I guess this was an all season in June 2023, got very little. So yeah, I just think they're all very different. There's some other stuff. So I was looking at when. So again, like things like this, you know, it's 6 months supply there. Maybe that's a new one. 6 months supply. It's got 3 or 2 months supply in there. It rejected just below the 2 month supply. It's coming back down. It's now made a local 2 month supply. You know, there is a possibility this is going to make a higher low. You know, so I had alerts here for higher lows, but now it's made this 2 month supply here. Is it just going to kind of come off here and just die forever? Yeah, so okay, so I guess I agree with you that yes, we're going to get the kind of all season where alts pump 2 to 5 times. So I think this stuff will pump 2 to 5 times. You know, so you might get like, well, I don't even know what this would be. Let me look at this, for example. So let's say this bounces here and we have an alt season. So this, the challenge is structure is could make a lower high here. So that'd be 148%, or makes a higher high. That'd be 275% to the 2 month level up there. So yes, I agree with you. We could get some 2 to 5 times, but I think what we will also get is the 50 times on some stuff. And it's going to be the narrative coins. I think we're still going to get that. Most retail traders got into this crypto and trading stuff after the big pumps in 2021, so it makes sense why alts are underperforming compared to other stuff. What do you mean compared to other stuff? Do you mean compared to Bitcoin, or do you mean compared to like TradFi? But I think it was the same for all of us. Like we got in, I guess, well, this is 2024, so that's very new. It's just trying to find the charts. Like I'm trying to remember the things that were around, like WAX. That was around when I first started, 2017. I may not have the whole chart here. I might have it on this Bittrex one. Yeah, so like WAX. So this for me was all season. This is, I guess, the difference. So it has the whole chart on this because I think this is Bittrex, so it finishes in December 23. But this for me was all season. So then even when we had this all season, that wasn't that big for me. We still had a lot of like if you look at Litecoin and stuff like that. But again, I don't think alts are underperforming. I just think they're not doing this. Like they're not doing, yeah, like you say, the 50 times or 100 times. But I don't think they're underperforming compared to other stuff like, you know, I mean, like S&P, whatever, has gone up like, you know, I don't know, 25%, 50%, 100%. I'm not sure what the percentages are, but in the same time period, alts just die more. That's the problem, and they die for long periods. But that's what I mean. They look like this. You know, just continuing And then in some cases, you know, they're not holding. So like doggy, I guess is holding, but then you've got in some cases they're more like this, and each bounce is just much less than the previous. But, you know, this for me is all season. I guess this is what you're saying. You were here for this one, and in this case, so let's look at wax now. So from 2023 to 2024. So that was the alt season. So yeah, it's just significantly less. So I guess we had, you know, that was my alt season, then it dropped, and this was your alt season, then it dropped, and this is that last year's alt season. And I think, and you know, and I always said at the time, you know, we were having particularly this bounce, and I think even this bounce, I was like, maybe these are the ones that are going to die forever. Um, because again, like this is a lot of stuff that was around when I was first starting. You know, WAXP just happens to be one of the few that's still in, but there's not much that's still in the game from when I first started. You know, there's the majors like kind of Ripple and all that stuff, but there's a lot of these, you know, the mid-range kind of shit coins just aren't around anymore. And the new wave, which is like let's say VET. So yeah, these are your season of shit coins. I think are just going to do what my season of shitcoins did, and you know that's your alt season because that was the bearish retest, and then they're going to come here, and then they might get another bearish retest, but eventually they're going to be dead. With a few exceptions, like there are some that have gone like crazy, or some that are more interesting, like XMR and whatever for whatever reason ARVE. But I think, and that's why structure is so critical. You know, you've got a monthly demand here, you've got a monthly or 3 monthly demand here, but this is a very, you know, that's your impulse. This is your bearish broadening wedge. So then this is where I expect the target for that to be. You know, and this is all, for me, it's supported by supply and demand. You know, we've had a couple of hits here, a higher high, higher low, higher high, unable to, this is more of a swing failure, unable to break this supply, coming back down, retest, trying to get a small bounce off this level. You know, that was going to go and test this level. Maybe it'll try and swing fail into that level, but probably this is going to fail. You know, this is a corrective pattern, like clearly corrective. Like even if you know nothing about Elliott waves, like we talked about on the last stream, like this is quite clearly compared to this impulse, this is quite clearly corrective. And if it's corrective at some point, it's going to take out this demand or at least come lower inside it. So maybe it'll bounce on there if we were optimistic. But there's that, you know, let's say that. What else? ZIL. Similar. So again, that was probably a monthly demand in there, maybe, and actually came very deep down inside it, but now has broken it. So it's got slightly more aggressive moves up here. So like you say, maybe these are your 2 or 5 times like you're talking about. So that I agree with. And it eventually come down into here. Maybe it'll get a bigger bounce, but you know, by then it's got, you know, and like I said, so much stuff now has 6 month supply or annual supply. By then it's got such high time frame supply that any bounce it gets is just going to get battered, and then it'll be gone forever, unless it's some real like use case behind it. But what we will also have each time is stuff like this. Maybe a bad example. The new stuff is the point. So this is a bad example because it's month, but you'll have the new stuff. We'll say like hype, SERAPH, like I don't know, I have no idea if these have like, you know, if we're going to have these the meme coins. So let's see what did this do? 600%. So maybe you're not going to get 50 or 100 times, like maybe it's 10 times. I don't know. I never do these percentages versus like how many times is 600%? That's 60 times, is it, or is that 6 times? I guess that's 6 times. I don't know, because I work in risk to reward. So. But again, you're here often enough. Be a trader. Like if you're going to do this, be a trader. Like it doesn't matter if it goes 6 or 10 times or whatever, you know, because you can make your money just trading day to day. But you know, you will make 2%, 2%, 2%. It's going to make you a lot more than waiting and hoping for this. But anyway, this stuff that's going to give you 50 times, 100 times, or whatever. Like hype is another one, isn't it? You know, let's look at the more recent ones like PEPE. What's PEPE doing now? Haven't looked at this for a while. Yeah, so again, like this, I just see, like when you look at WAXP or something, I'm trying to think of why I saw one example. Maybe it was Doggy that was like this, I can't remember. But, you know, we've again, impulse, correction, impulse. Maybe we get a correction and a third move, and then this will go back down to here or die forever. So, or maybe this is, you know, that's the impulse correction and it's going to come back down to here before going up. or by then it's made significant supply here, and then that's the end of it. But I think we'll still get the big moves. I just think the big moves are going to come on the new stuff and the narrative stuff. So I don't think it's so. That's why I keep like now I've kind of focusing a lot more on charting the new stuff that comes out in MEXC, and also that's in all, not just MEXC, but all the exchanges. MEXC has a whole far too many new coins, but even Binance, etc. I'm trying to focus on those. So like PIPPIN, it's another new one because if these are the ones that if they're any good. And like Zerebro that I just showed that looks a lot shitter than this, but that's a big impulse up and it's now corrected the whole thing down. Is this the start of something that's going to end up as your 100 times, even if it's next year? So that's the stuff you should be watching out for, and don't get so, I don't know what you buy or whether you're a holder, but don't get like set on, oh, you have to buy ZIL or, like Credible Crypto has like a massive like following and love of CRV. And to be fair on him, he knows the fundamentals behind it, which I don't. But I just look at this chart every time, and I'm like, annual supply. So and it was a difficult one because it did flip a 6 month to some extent, but it's now coming off. But this, I showed you one a minute ago. I was XEM. Does this not look very like XEM? You learned your lesson trading is the way. Yeah, used to hold only for new highs. I mean, I think you can, but you've got to know that you're doing that. You've got to have the money to DCA and all that sort of stuff. Does this not look exactly like XEM that I just showed you? That if this candle closes a little bit lower at the end of it's got 5 months to do so, that it's just going to tap off there and die forever. It looks very like the XEM chart, but again, like Credible Crypto, like he says this has fundamentals, so sure, maybe it can be one of the anomaly that does break through. Like I said, it became more tentative, like it's hard for you to see here, but it did kind of close this candle just above here for sort of potentially 6 month demand, but very, very weak. But again, I can't in good conscience say to you, if you know the fundamentals, then sure, you can buy this, like, be like Credible Crypto and buy this thinking it's going to go to $12 or whatever. Yeah, maybe it will. Like, I guess if you look at it on the lower time frame, it looks a bit better. But then as soon as I put that annual on, I'm like, no, I'm not buying this to hold. I'm not crazy. It's tested up into it. The swing failed that test. So the annual chart is very much down. Sure, it might try and break up to here. It might get back to $1 or something. Obviously, I've got an alert there for 2 weeks supply. Maybe you could take a long here and maybe that would be the way to go. But I wouldn't be trading this in here having just rejected annual supply. CTK. This is another one I looked at because I think I had a long entry on this in case it was a swing failure, but another one, annual, there's an annual grey line there, so that's annual supply. Actually made a new annual supply in here. For some reason I haven't got it marked properly. So yeah, annual supply, tested higher, dropped down. Oh, it's not a confirmed annual supply, sorry, that's why I haven't. So in this case, can change that back. But yeah, like those massive drops that it has off these annual supplies. So these are the ones I just think, aren't very likely to come back ever. The 6 month supply in there. I'm still going through all these to kind of update these for the new 6 month closes. But horrible 6 month close on that. But still I put it long there just for amusement value. This is why I say everybody has to do their own research, because sometimes I'm just like looking really low time frame. I don't have time to do the full analysis on everything. But yeah, there's sort of 2 months supply. It's very choppy. So the only thing in these favors is they are very choppy all the way up. So, but each so once it's gone, if it does get through this monthly, then there's a 2 month there. Not very nice 2 month, and there's a 3 month above. So it is possible again, we could get an alt season, that sends this all the way back up to there, which is why I still look for long entries. But then ultimately I still expect that. So, and then also just being cautious of whether, so long as you're not trading right into. So a lot of these, like again, if you look at a lot of alt charts, this hasn't confirmed this one, but they've got this monthly. I'm seeing people, so let's say here in May, at the May this close, June, yeah, May this close below the April candle, and then it tested back up into it, and then it obviously just runs straight off it. You can see here it would have tested into that monthly zone here, and then just fallen, and now it's retesting it. So again, I don't know, some of these things, this is still, people are still calling alt season, and these are still very much in lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. And if you start seeing an aggressive green candle like this, then sure, it's worth looking for possible longs on the retest, even if you just get a scalp, just in case you can get the low. But the amount of times I've seen everybody else going, oh, alt season, alt season, alt season. Oh no. So just don't alt season your way straight into the next monthly supply every time we have a bounce. So yeah, anyway, a lot of digression there, but a lot of alts. So hey, let me look at a few more of these. I'll do maybe 15 minutes more and have look at a few more of these alerts that came through, just as examples. So BULLA, I had an alert set for this 5-day zone. So that was the alert at the start of it. Didn't get much of a bounce off that first level and is now down, and just had an alert for this 12 hours. Obviously these again still in a downtrend, but kind of worth watching just in case. Perhaps the whales and developers bailed in these coins, and perhaps they are pressuring the price down to buy low. In some cases, probably. I think, there's obviously a huge amount of manipulation in this space. So you're going to have new stuff like this that, are there still developers, is this just dead? Maybe it's just dead from the outset, like some stuff is. But are, developers, yes, possibly the developers bail, but there are whales still who bought up here, who got sucked in, and they have the money and the capacity to push the price up, even if just to get out. But again, like I say, I don't have the time or the inclination to look at the fundamentals of everything, but it's just it's kind of just going, okay, we had a decent move off this zone. It's a bit dubious, like it's still within this range, but if this is if that's a low and it's like just stop hunted that low and it's coming down to test the range low, like it's a reasonable, if not highest probability possibility for looking for a long entry. So all I'm doing is setting an alert and kind of going, okay, you keep an eye on that, see if it gives you some entry on the 1 hour or whatever. Or if you wait for a stronger impulse, maybe it can get up to here, and then, you just see what happens. So this is not a high probability trade, but worth watching. Something like MAVIA, I think my alert was like way too early on this. Did I reset it? No. So something like this again, like I have no idea. Is this just going to reset that alert because it was a little early? So there's 1 day and 2 day demand down here. Some of these alerts are ancient as well, so just be conscious of that. Like this, I would have set probably like back here, but obviously I've updated it in the middle, and then yeah. But again, so I can see they're in the favor of the market, like these trend lines that I'm talking about. I can see the possibility of an alt season in inverted commas, or at least random pumps like port 3 to take out these trend lines. So that's it. It's got that in its favor. And if it's a higher low, so then again, I've got some alerts set for the lower highs, and again, that's the risk. So now if we make a higher low here, this is a possible short, but it's not a high probability short. So then we expect to obviously take out that high and then potentially get up here. So we could get those bigger alt seasons. So it is worth watching when you get these kind of alerts, or when you're just looking at charts and you're seeing something like this. If this does bounce here, it's very decent risk to reward. There's my tool. Got the right way around, yes. Don't like putting it on when it's got on the log chart because it goes crazy. But if you look at it on the linear chart, it just looks crazy, doesn't it? But yeah, it's a very tight entry, and you could enter now, stop below the low, or maybe wait till the lows stop hunted, and potentially go for that higher high, and that's an 800%. Even if you go to here, it's 200%, but it's still 8R. It's 8R if it goes to there, and it's 30R if it goes up to here. So anyway, whether that's a high probability trade is highly dubious, but these are at least the ones you can position in with a clean stop that isn't too far away, and just see what happens. MIX is another one that's just been an absolute lunatic of a coin. So yeah, I was actually looking at it here, and it was really nice, and then it dumped, and then it pumped, and then I think I was looking for a short there, and then Rose pumped it up to there. So then I kind of went, okay, let's look for long entries. I did get a couple of long, well, that one went through, and then a long entry, and then it just went nut and died again, and then pumped again. So I don't know. This short got run through. And then it's made a 2-week demand, so I was like, hey, well, might as well look for a long entry on this 2-week demand. But that's just, I mean, it's just a shit show of a coin, not the easiest to trade. This has had a big pump. It made a 4-hour demand, so I did say, yeah, watch this for shorts. Can still go higher, obviously, inside the zones. A 5-day there, and there's a 2-month inside. This 4-hour, it's just held, but yeah, just watch the build up on this and see if this gives a short. So what I've also said that these are highest probability for at the moment. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought at the moment in this market. Like anything which pumps, short it back down, because those are the highest probability trades at the moment. We're back to kind of how we were before. AIC, I had an alert go for this weekly demand, but it hasn't quite hit it, so I reset it. But this is actually one I didn't mind. But again, you can just see, so what you talked about with the chop earlier, Aussie man, like this is, again, it's just a chop, but that's had a decent, it's got a monthly demand and it's had a decent bounce off that. So I thought it was worth potentially, it's not the nicest weekly demand in there, but worth an eye. If it can just drift back down into that level. And again, the other difficulty with these, I say drift back down into that level, is like, when you can see the drift, it's just a question of how deep these drifts go. Like sometimes they can be shallower drifts and other times they can just drift. This could just drift all the way down here if it wants to. But so you're looking for a decent reaction off that level and then for potentially buy a retest. House is just going into drift of death mode. And this is another one which potentially has a trend line that could get taken out. Don't know exactly how I draw that, but anyway. Again, weekly demand, keep an eye on it, but at the moment not showing any signs of doing anything interesting. A was the EOS one that I said, so I did reset, so I had the alert go, and in fact all the exchanges did take this wick up there, but it didn't quite hit the level, so I just threw that in again just in case. Port 3 already talked about. Rex. So this has come up into monthly supply and also 6-month supply. It's taken a bit of wick inside that to a 5-day. But yeah, again, look for the short entry on this, like it's still trying to push at the moment, but hopefully won't push all the way back up there. But there are going to be other levels. There's always other levels inside, so if it wants to push higher, it can. Like I haven't mapped all the other levels particularly. But so there's a weekly, it's just tapped into that weekly there. 5 days already been tested. It's got some stacked zones, so it could push higher. But yeah, then if it does push higher, then the 1 day and the 12-hour in there. But again, around this level, you're looking for possibility of reversal. And then I would like to see that take out the trend line stops there. AIOT is another one. So this I think I had this alert set a while ago, so I don't really like how long it's taken to get here and how it's got so much new supply. But again, it does have that trend line stops going on. So if it does want to hold here, so it was a little bit aggressive. It was on a 12-hour demand there, I think. So again, like could just run deeper. I think that's a monthly. So it's now got a new monthly demand a little bit below. So actually my preference would probably be to wait for a bit lower on this. But in case it wants to front run me, you can keep an eye on that. But preferably, yeah, but certainly keep an eye on this when it comes back down into that monthly zone a little bit lower if it comes back down. AGT we already talked about on the other layout. LAUNCHCOIN again is a little bit of a challenge. So I had an alert here for daily supply inside the weekly. Then I had an alert here for the 3-day demand for a long. But by then it had made a new daily supply, so it's got a 2-day supply. So I think I was a bit like, maybe we can look and see if this actually is ready to fall off a cliff. But I think it's just not ready for anything in any particular direction at the moment. So it's obviously also got a 5-day supply in there. So it's just a little bit messy here. So I might give this a little bit more time. So that's 5-day. Yeah, so it's trying to run up inside the 5-day. It's coming off 3-day demand. So yeah, it's just a bit of a messy. If it gets a wick up, obviously, to the higher zones, you can start looking for shorts. But yeah, this is not very clear in either direction at the moment. Again, but it's sort of similar to the other stuff. Like I wanted to, like I might put this actually on that layout for things to die. Or do massive breakouts, because if this does start to roll off here again, it's going to have a really big drop. So I'd like to be positioned short if and when that happens. ALPINE was a sort of a pump scenario yesterday. I don't know what that was, but again, straight up into monthly supply, but it's obviously wick straight up into the 3-day insider. So I haven't been watching this to be able to get any like added entries, but thankfully, because it looks like it's again just been quite nasty and messy. I don't know why this happened. This is quite a it's a bit of a, what do you call it? An exit pump for if we're thinking of something being delisted again. I went over the delistings yesterday and this wasn't on there, so unless somebody knows something I don't, which is highly possible. One thing I did notice when I looked at the delistings yesterday is that it does appear that MEXC adjusts leverage for things that are being delisted, and it did make me question whether the timing of these things. So it's something if I ever have time, I might investigate as to whether, is the delisting because I've got a feeling MEXC is adjusting the leverage before the delisting announcement. So either they know something I don't, or somebody's trading something before the delisting announcement because it's clearly insider trading. And then when they trade things and the market goes too crazy, then MEXC adjusts the leverage because they don't want people to get wrecked. So I'm not sure in what order of events, but I think it's something that's worth potentially investigating to see if there's any lead indication of something being delisted and getting those delisting pumps or dumps. But we did have another one that was a delisting dump, so I think, again, just be a bit careful because they don't all pump on delistings. It can just be a dump. But yeah, anyway, that's going to be a short at some stage, but I'm just not sure. I don't know, has the swing failed the low? I don't know, I need to think about that one a little bit more. Bake, okay, that's just died. I had an alert go for all-time low in case it's been failed, but that's going to be some sort of, I'll find a short entry for that on a retest, I think. AAVE was a short entry, 5-day supply. It's fine, but it's done. Needs more analysis. Cloud, okay, so this is approaching monthly demand, so again, something to keep an eye on. Like I had a weekly, and I think a weekly I said, and we've also got a monthly inside it. A few other levels going on here, but yeah, just keep an eye on this as it comes down into the monthly, because that is something, again, might get a decent move. It's a big drop and it's had amount of consolidation along the bottom, and if it's made in me monthly demand, you can see if that can get a push higher. ASR has also been kind of a nice trading both directions scenario, but is a little bit indecisive. So I was short bias on this because we were firstly in 2 months supply there, I think, or 2 months supply, and then 3 months supply, and then also this annual supply at this grey level. So it was short biased here, but it pushed higher inside. I had said with the initial hit on the annual supply that it could also want to take out these levels, even though that means it obviously going higher in the annual supply. It's a 3-month zone up there. So, and it's obviously still kind of in this little uptrend up here. So hence I had short entry, which I talked about in the last stream, aggressive short entry on the 8-hour supply, gave a really nice drop into weekly demand for a long entry. And this, okay, so this short is alerted here, but it's tentative. I know I said it could still go for the equal highs above here, because that wick just didn't, in my alert went there, but it didn't quite take out the equal highs, and then this 3-month supply above. Should I put that in the alert as well? Yeah, so it needs a little bit more time on that one. You can see if it gets a reaction for the lower high end here, even if it comes down and consolidates here, there is a chance it's going up higher. XO I talked about already, like I say, on the other, got that alert for the 4-hour supply. TROLLSOL also talked about on the previous stream, so got a nice reaction here, like I was looking for a swing fail and or like a tap into that 12-hour supply above. So that was a nice short going down there, and the alert went here for 12-hour demand at the base, but didn't quite hit the level, just wicked into it. So yeah, just need to see. But again, just trading these both directions. I'm not trying to make a judgment call as to whether this is going to 3,000 or whether it's going to 0 at this point. Things are like these. It's just like if there's a clean zone, we can look for longs and shorts, same as here. And once it's been in there too long, then I'm just going to start thinking, okay, it's not gonna break out. It's not going to go anywhere. BONK is that's the one I wanted to show you. So when I was talking about the majors with regards to structure, is because the different challenges of it. So BONK had a monthly demand here, which it then, when it dropped down, it wicked through a couple of times. Bounced, come back into 2 months supply, and then 3 month inside it. That 3 month probably wasn't confirmed at the first hit. Oh no, it looks like it actually was. So again, so this has come back up in, so this came up into 3 month supply. So again, you become short bias. When it hits 3 month supply, you then want it to take out the low. So obviously we've come down here, we haven't taken out the low, but ideally we'd want it to take out the low there from a supply perspective. This has then come back up to test. So thus I was then looking for the possibility of a lower high. However, because it made a higher low, it's still possible it goes to the next zone up or higher. So that's kind of the bear thesis, is that we're in this giant 3 month, 2 month supply, and we want to take out that low following a test, no matter where the test is in the zone. That's the bear thesis. The bull thesis, and the bear thesis is also that we've taken out monthly demand, even if it is only on Wix. The bull thesis is that this is a swing failure. This is our range, we've swing failed the low, we swing failed the high, and we swing failed the low, and now we're just back in range. And in fact, we're just in the middle of range. So bulls are probably just like, yeah, we're still in the middle of the range. We're good. We're good for continuing this uptrend, which obviously is a bigger uptrend from here. So that's my challenge. I think when I look at majors, it's similar. This just shows more of that aggressive move here. So the majors are just kind of like here, the equivalent they're doing, like I've shown those 2-day, those sideways 2-day, whereas BONK has obviously taken off from that consolidation. And then it had 5-day supply. I probably would have had 5 and 4-day supplies in there. Yes, I had a 5-day supply that already been tested. It's just run straight through that. It's run through 5-day supply at the top here. And obviously, now it's looking like it's rejecting. It's overall in the weekly supply. So it's obviously being a bit red now, but rejecting is probably a bit strong. May or may not reject here for a lower high, could still run for the higher high. And that, I guess, like I say, is my challenge on the majors, is because they're all, they don't have this structure over here, but they're all sort of not dissimilar here. They've got these monthlies. They've got a tentative demand at the lows or swing failures, or in the case of, like I said, LINK, DOGE and AIDA, they've got 6-month annual demands down here. They've got all these monthly supplies, so it's quite hard to know, are we getting again and again, is this, this is the corrective move, even if it does go up there, is it still going to do that afterwards? Or are we going to go back into bullish land because this is a monthly demand and we've just wicked through it and we've retested it and now this is going straight to the moon? So I know the bulls would like that scenario, so obviously we can have both scenarios. So again, for me, trading both directions is the way to go. And then try and trade that in conjunction with what others is doing, and US dollar dominance, etc. CTK and NEWT and AUR I've already talked about. Swarms. So there's a few here now that were just good examples of, short the pump. So Swarms pumped up into 5-day supply, came straight back down. I did put an alert for daily demand just in case, gave it a little bit of a bounce, but not very far, and now dropping again. This apparently got a 6-month level there as well. Yeah, so this has made 6-month supply, so I probably shouldn't have put that there, but maybe I didn't notice also I need to colour things in so I can remember. I've got an alert all the way up there. But yeah, so this is obviously just come back up. It's tapped into 6-month supply, so that's a 5-day inside the 6-month. When the test has come up, it's tested the 6-month. Now we expect this to fall. Audio was a much quicker one, but again, the alert went for 3-week supply there. I don't know if that was tradable. It would have been very quick hit, so probably wasn't very tradable, but again, just shorting it straight back down. CARV, another one. And what I said to the group, what I'm doing at the moment, and what I do always anyway, because it's hard to keep on top of stuff, is I tend to sort the watch list towards the end of each day, and I'm trying to look at it during the day if I can, and anything that comes up at the end of the day that's like got up, a 50% increase or something like that, I look at where the next possible entry is, and like FIS is one. So FIS is one I basically looked at last night, and it was kind of, I think it was down here. And I kind of went, okay, there's a monthly supply a little bit above, I'll just set an alert for that. So that's how you can catch these. Just set your alerts, look for the ones that are starting to pump and just set your alerts at monthly supplies and things. And then you get them on the way back down. Where's CARV gone? Here we go. So yeah, like I say, these are the highest probability. They don't always give you re-entries, but in this case, I could give a couple of 4-hour re-entries, and again, just decent move back down again. So it's hard to catch the pumps before they happen because you've got so many coins to keep an eye on. L3 is another example of exactly the same thing. This came up really hard, so I think there was a daily supply there that I had, and then monthly supply or 2 monthly supply at the high here. So again, just pumped in a day or so, consolidated a bit, dump. So yeah, those are the ones to really look at. Jaeger, what's going on with Jaeger? Yeah, it was a bit like MAVIA and some of the others, like it may have a nice short in there, it come into long at the start of the impulse, may or may not hold, it's not looking great at the moment. GPS, another example of sell the pump, pumped up into 5-day supply, dropping back down. And in this case, doesn't even really have an alert here for 5-day demand, doesn't even really look like it wants to hold that. So you can see just generally across the board, like the shorts are the ones that are working a lot better. You know, even if they only work, like LAUNCHCOIN has bounced back today, but even if it worked for a few hours, whereas the longs are much more likely to just go nut and not give any bounce at all. So like really, I think staying on the short side tends to be wiser at the moment, you know, just buy, sell things that are pumped. And even this, like, so ban, I think is something again that could get quite bullish. Might add this to the bullish list, to the potential bullish list. But this is, this did make a 2-month demand here. So I don't love this local structure, but it's got a 2-month demand in there, so I've alerted that weekly just inside it. But yeah, I might add that to the bullish list. I don't know what I have to do. I should move it. NEWT. Where is ban? Not far, so I'm gonna add that there as well. I remember. Yeah, so short off there, and then yeah, just looking for longs if it comes into there. Then bit of a double bottom there. So alternatively, if they drop deeper, weekly demand a bit lower. UXLINK, another pump. This is not such a big pump, but just another pump back into supply. So again, yeah, I was just looking at that, you know, long entry here, and there was an alert for 12-hour daily demand up into 5-day supply. Comes down here, will it or won't it make a higher low? It just depends where the market's at. Soon as another one that got thrown off a cliff, actually, again, like I had sort of some hope for this, thinking maybe we get a run up into here. But yeah, just didn't hold on this last demand. I can't remember what, I think it might have been a 5-day there, 4-day or 5-day, just, and it's just dropped straight back down, made a weekly supply. So again, I've just flipped the bias, looking for a shorter weekly supply there. GOONC is kind of interesting. Like I noticed this was just because it's higher on the green side today, but needs a bit more time as to see whether this is gonna holding this 3-day, making a higher low or not. GOGs are delisting, so again, that was really nice. Again, long, it kind of came through the weekly a bit there, but then yeah, short 5-day supply. This is going to be delisted, so it's not something to be traded now. Waves I talked about on the last stream, it was another short pump, just a daily pump up into this 3-week supply and drop straight back down. DUPE I talked about earlier, but the potential for taking these stops out, but conscious of 2-week supply. BR I talked about in the last stream, so I won't talk about that now. That's basically just been sideways since my last stream after the craziness. Useless I've already talked about, and it looks like it's dropping more. Fund might start finally coming down. Funds, yeah, it's a difficult one. Fund's interesting actually because yeah, I made a 6-month demand down here and a 1 month inside. Made this 3-day here, so I thought, hey, why not? I'll just throw an alert on that 4-day demand and see if it can bounce on this. Wondered if it might just get another little move up into this 3-month supply up here. But overall, this is actually, you know, this is probably going to be the TRB of this season. I was trying to get longs all the way down at the lows because it had annual demand here, but it eventually came, I think, all the way down. Actually, not to the bottom of annual demand, but very, very deep inside. It didn't bounce, cold bounce as well off the retest of the top here, so that was unfortunate. And yeah, then I went back into short buys, but now it's holding pretty well. But I don't like how shitty this is. This PA, clearly manipulating PA there, but we can see what reaction we get on that 4-day demand if it hits. Trying to think, I'm just running out of. NEIROETH is another one to watch. 3 months demand here, so I've got an alert set for that near 3-month demand. So again, hopefully it won't pull a BMT and just fall off a cliff. But again, the structure is a lot better here with the 3 months demand. But it is, I think it's still it's a little bit like BMT, so it's still in this monthly supply, so it's still in a massive monthly supply, which I've had to delete to show the 3-month demand. So yeah, just see if it gets a reaction just off that top level, as and when it gets there. Not the cleanest, not the nicest. There's a 3-month, and it's already wicked a couple of times. But if it can hold this triangle and use that 3-month, if it can get some traction off there, this could have a decent move. If it doesn't, if it starts to drift inside it, doesn't get a strong reaction straight away, just leave it, because your other option, like if either it's going to get the reaction quickly off there, or if it's going to be slow about it, then there's the risk it falls down into here, so therefore leave it alone. But if it does then do that, then you can get the re-entry here. Even if it, so yeah, just let it be quick there if it wants to be. APE, again, I was short bias, 3-month supply, had a second test that actually hit, and then a retest on 2-weekly supply in there. So anyway, these are some of the older ones now, so I'll probably calm down on doing any more of these right now. I think there's not much more right now. Bank was one that I wanted to be kind of bullish on as well, but there's not structure that I can justify shorting on at the moment. So I had an alert here on this, the 5-day supply, had a weekly a bit higher inside it, and it just went quite far up in the zone, had just a little reaction off the zone when the alert went, and went quite a lot higher in the zone. So yeah, I need to see more on this. At the moment, I've got an alert set for the 3-day down here, but also it's made a new 2-day above that, so it may or may not get down here. But it's hard, again, it's one of the ones that's very new. It's hard to know if you're going to get, like, this is a pump retracement bullish or retracement bearish. Like, it can go either way at this point. But at least, again, it's one of the ones that was stronger compared to everything else, so something that you can potentially keep on your radar. And finally, actually, I'll just show ALGO because of what we were talking about with the are they going to die forever scenario. So I think this maybe has an annual supply that I haven't got drawn in. Yeah, so it's closed below this annual level here. It's testing up back inside it, and it's starting to fall off it now. It's difficult because it's been in a 6-month demand. 6 months demand again. You can't see very well with all my crap, but decent candle up, and it's closing. It's just trying to test this 6-month demand. So this is, it's tentative. I don't like that it's closed below the annual level, below this support, and nor that it's fallen back below that support now. So I was still, again, wanting to be short biased on it, but still in 6-month demand. But it's these ones that are going to be the kind of the ones that are more interesting, like I said, with like ARV and things like that. Like, is this going to pick up? So I say this is an annual supply, but to be fair, it's probably got PA here that isn't on Binance, so there's going to be some history on that that I don't have. But again, is this the start of a new uptrend, or is this just a corrective structure for more bearishness? And this is probably one of the ones that's a little bit more indecisive, but yeah, at least I think I wanted that. I was looking for that short in there just to potentially get us down to here. So again, I think the alts are going to be mixed. We're going to get some here that are going to hold the high and low, like we saw on BONK, and then we're going to get others like this, which hasn't really done much of a bounce. It had 3-day demand there, it hasn't really done much off it, but that's probably going to fall down for a lower entry for a long. Anyway, it is 5:45, and I want to go for a walk on the beach. So I hope that's useful. Let me just see what Bitcoin's done while I've been. Okay, yeah, so we're just faffing around on this even as well. Came down a bit deeper, broke that 2-hour. So yeah, as I said, just a quick summary on Bitcoin. I want to see Bitcoin and Ether. I want to see if we create those 3-day demands. Bitcoin's obviously now quite a way off it. Ether's a bit closer. I am cautiously bullish based on having closed above 2-weekly demand. However, don't really want to long tops, and very, very wary of longing Ether in 3-month supply. But yeah, I really just want to see a bit more on these. And so I would, yeah, my strategy would be stick with trade of alts at the moment, because again, these just aren't, the risk to reward isn't there unless you're scalping these and just taking a couple of hours off each trade. Very much driven by futures buying. And given we're in a slightly precarious position with the indices and that these could correct at any time, It's, yeah, slightly concerning for Bitcoin because obviously Bitcoin hasn't followed. You know, maybe I know something else I probably should check. You know, is Bitcoin likely to follow after the indices breakout? I can't remember like previous breakouts. Did Bitcoin normally go first or second or no correlation? I don't know. Might try and have a look at some of that correlation stuff tomorrow. Anyway, I don't know if you're there, Aussie man, but thanks for watching. I hope you have a good evening. And yeah, anybody who's new and watching this later or the recording, please like and subscribe. Feel free to join my Telegram channel. Feel free to request any charts you want or any of the alts, like I have 800 of them. So it's good to have something to focus on that somebody else actually wants. And yeah, other than that, have a good evening.